Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, as you all know, that Pakistan got extended fund facility from International Monetary Fund of $7 billion for 3 years. And along with that, Pakistan must have to go through the structural reforms and fiscal discipline. That was necessary to have smooth review under IMF and also financing facilities availability from other lenders as well. IMF-driven reforms needs to have a broadened tax base, taxing the untaxed, bringing the informal sector into the formal one or the tax net. Also to enhance the tax collection, FBR transformation and digitalization, cutting the government expenditures and particularly those which are unnecessary, especially when it comes to the state-owned enterprises, resolving all issues related to them. Along with that, create fiscal and budgetary space, stabilize the foreign exchange reserves and the currency as well. It was also needed that there must have to be external financing guarantees and bringing the foreign direct investment, because that is the actual thing. And then the export-led growth to have stable foreign exchange reserves. In the first half of the current financial year 2025, Pakistan performed satisfactory. To some extent, Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves and currency is a bit stable. External financing would be there in due course. Slight improvement into the tax to GDP ratio, but still to do a lot, because Pakistan is striving hard to attain the objective of rupees 13 trillion for the revenue, but still facing the shortfall of at least 468 billion rupees. Foreign direct investment is a big question. Pakistani government right now trying hard to have the foreign direct investment. It's a bit slow but picking up. Remittances is record high. It's about a 32% increase, 20.8 billion in 7 months of the financial year. Exports are also growing. It's approximately 7.1% growth in exports, and it was mainly because of agriculture production and a slight improvement in large-scale manufacturing as well, but the IT has the major share in that. Moody's and Fitch improved Pakistan's credit rating. That is also very important area. Here, still lots of economic challenges are there. The number one is the terrorism. Pakistan is fighting hard under the Azm-e-Istehkam strategy. Then the second one is the political stability. That is also a question, but it is improving. When it comes to the broadening tax base, that is a big question. Bringing investments, enhancing exports, because export-led growth is very important, and obviously the state-owned enterprises and all others. These are the major areas to tackle with. We'll talk on these important aspects of Pakistan's economy, because without that, we can't improve, we can't stabilize. To focus on that, we have in our studios Dr. MANZOOR. He is the former ambassador to World Trade Organization and also senior fellow at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, SAEED. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence. And with him, Dr. HIDYATULLAH Khan. He is the head of Department of Economics at the National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your presence. And online joining us, Dr. NEELUM NIGAR. She is the senior economist. Thank you very much, ma'am, for sparing time. Dr. Manzoor sahab, do you not think that despite of the political instability, surge in terrorism and lots of pressures on the government successfully able to achieve at least the first half of the year, lots of targets with we have Azm-e-Istehkam strategy, then Special Investment Facilitation Council, recently launched Udan Pakistan initiative, playing a crucial role when it comes to the economic recovery, as Moody's upgraded Pakistan's rating from CAA3 to CAA2, and outlook turned stable to positive now. While when we are talking about Fitch, also improved the rating from triple C plus to triple C. Now, it seems the stability is coming, but it is still fragile. How do you see overall a scenario of Pakistan's economic growth?
Well, as you said, I mean, we had so many challenges, but despite those challenges, I think the government has been able to perform reasonably well. You see, if you look a year, the previous year, and compare it with this year, I mean, at that time, in February or January last year, end of last year, everyone was talking about Pakistan's possible going to default. They will not be able to meet their equipments, our foreign exchange reserves were just a few weeks of imports. And almost everything, I mean, our rating, we could not even borrow from international markets because the interest, even at a very high interest rate, nobody would give us. So that has been successfully brought under control. Our risk, our default risk is reduced by 93%. This is because the international, what they call it, insurance, they take this into account. If we borrow something, and if the default risk is so high as was last year, first nobody would lend you, and then if somebody does, the interest rate will be very high. So this is, I think, a major achievement in the last 1 year. And then if you look at many other things, I think that maybe we'll discuss one by one later on. But in general, I think the economy is relatively much stable than it was a year ago.
Very well elaborated. Dr. Hidayatullah Sahab, where the economy is right now heading, because the key macroeconomic indicators telling us that some of the healthy signs, if maintained, foreign remittances remained 20.8 billion US dollars. In the first 7 months, it's 32% surge. Investments are picking up. Inflation gone record low to 2.4%, while as State Bank of Pakistan, obviously they reduced its policy rate to 12%, although it's a bit higher, but we have to remember that it is down from 28%. So, Karachi Stock Exchange or the Pakistan Stock Exchange, particularly its index surged to record beyond 100,000 points and hover around 110,000 points right now. Although the rupee is stable, but do you not think that particularly the currency market, and according to the market adjustments, rupee value must have to be downward strengthened?
Thank you very much. I think at the moment, rupee is a bit overvalued. And when we are having overvalued rupees, and we know that it has been kept at that level due to certain factors, which we know that the government is playing quite stringent role to just to curb the informal exchange, or which used to happen a lot 2 years before. So one reason is that. The second reason is that when we have overvalued currency, it actually promotes the informal transfer of money. Like in our case, hundi. If there is a premium between the formal exchange rate and the market or the underground exchange rate, then people tend to send their monies through informal channels to take benefit of that margin. And the third thing is that real effective exchange rate. So if the real is not according to its actual value, it hurts the economy. It hurts the economy that your exports are less competitive as compared to your neighboring countries or the basket of foreign exchange with which you are competing.
It is still fragile,
yes,
definitely.
The second thing is that when your currency is overvalued, you can keep it up to certain time by force. But when the market forces will be acting, or when those stringent matters are out of action, there will be a huge devaluation. And this will create inflation. This will
obviously it affects overall economic paradigm.
It will increase our trade deficit, and even it will make some of the businesses like non-viable. So that's why we need to be very careful about the overvalued.
So, Dr. Hidayat, most likely that International Monetary Fund is going to undertake its first formal review in early March. It requires FBR transformation, energy and agriculture reforms, curtailing the government expenditures, settling state-owned enterprises issues, including PIA and other privatization issues, debt sustainability and retirement with gradually with the passage of time. Government is confident actually, strict in achieving those reform benchmarks. What do you think that where we stand right now when it comes to the IMF first formal review, where we stand right now?
Actually, what I got from your question, you were talking about the IMF wish list or IMF list of tasks which were given to the government in its previous review. So let's start it from the tax system reform. I think that the overall tax collection has been increased, but it is due to like crushing the salaried class and the small businesses. When we look at real collection, like from the businesses
and indirect taxes,
yeah, or indirect taxation, the most focus is on the salaried class or low-lying fruit. The first thing. The second thing about the SOEs, which is a big, what you can say, headache for every government. Although there are some plans, but those still need to be implemented. For example, most recently there was a news of privatization of a few discos, power distribution corporation. But if you look at in depth, those three discos are profit-making discos. Okay, now coming to the energy sector and the circular debt, that is again a big headache for any government. When we look at the last 1 year period, unfortunately, it has been increased instead of decreasing. So the government has done, it has increased.
I have a question on that as well.
Okay.
We'll discuss in detail about the circular debt particularly. Dr. Manzoor sahab, government fiscal operations summary shows that Pakistan met 3 of the vital IMF targets out of 5 particularly. Federal government primary budget surplus that rose to 3.6 trillion or 2.9% of the GDP, when target was actually 2.9 trillion rupees. Revenue collection target, although we have little problems as the tax collected, that was beyond 6 trillion rupees. And under Tajir-Do scheme, although the benchmark was entirely different, but collected minimum at least 23.4 billion in taxes. From traders, and then the cash surplus target by the 4 provinces. That is very important. That exceeded the target and stands at, that was might be 750 billion rupees, but collected at least 776 billion. While additional collection of 442 billion in revenue surpassing the, that is related to the provinces, surpassing rupees 376 billion. How do you see these 3 important benchmarks, and what about the rest of the couple of the rest?
Well, I think it's a positive sign that these 3, but I think one of these about the revenue.
Yes.
I don't think we are there because the target was set up very high, 40% higher than last year.
Actually, that is another science, that how you have to calculate and
Yes.
how you have to go to.
But we are about 460 billion short so far.
Still.
In these 7 months. And
Some says 468, some say 470.
It doesn't matter, 460,
but
70,
it's, yes.
but what's expected is that by the end of the year, maybe we will be about 1 trillion rupees short. So that's a worrying thing. Other things that you have mentioned, like the provincial government and primary surplus, etc., yeah, those have been achieved.
That is actually in case when we are talking about revenue collection.
Yeah.
Revenue collection, when year on year basis, it's higher. But when it comes to the target what the IMF has, that is lower than that, no doubt about that.
Year on year, it's usually higher because of inflation.
Obviously. There are lots of reasons for that.
Where were we supposed to get there? We were 40% up, but we are only 26% up.
It's all about, you know that it's all about figures and the data. You know that you can...
Yeah, but actually, you see, because this is an actual whole.
Obviously.
Because you make your budget according to how much you're going to collect and all the projections. And if that is not met, then you're...
Let's have this question from Dr. NEELUM, because revenue collection is the very important area of Pakistan's economy. Dr. NEELUM, where we stand right now on Federal Board of Revenue's transformation plan, including the digitalization process, what about overcoming the 468 billion or 470 billion rupees of shortfall and achieving the budgetary tax target of 13 trillion during the second half of the current year 2025? Because in first half, although we performed better, but we still have to achieve that target. Stern measures required to check actually the smuggling, then effective implementation of agri-income tax from the July 1st, because the date is now accelerated further. Assured collection from the retailers, that is very important again, bringing 3.5 million elite and 9.5 million potential filers. Out of 15 million filers, only at least 5.9 million filed the tax returns, down from 6.3 million in 2023. And informal sector into the tax net, that is again very important, giving the incentives to the sincere taxpayers, as Dr. Hidayat was rightly mentioned about the salaried class, the third largest taxpayer or the tax contributor. How do you see that?
Thank you, Raza sir. I think it's very important, as mentioned by Dr. MANZOOR and Hidayat, Dr. Hidayat also, that revenue collection has always been an uphill task for any government in the history of the country. But while referring to the FBR's transformation plan, what I was very much interested in looking into was, other than the digitalization of the overall tax system, what was important to look was for bringing the agriculture sector into the tax net. As mentioned that by July 2025, it will be brought under the tax net. But what are important to look into is there are certain things which are important to do. Like in case of agriculture, there are certain issues that we do not know how reliable are the valuation of the record of agricultural land, right? There is not a proper format for that. And then when the farmers or the owners are declaring their income, agriculture income, how reliable is that if there is not a reliable valuation record of the agricultural land? Right, and with that, the tax authority, I believe, does not have the capacity to verify particularly the accuracy of the cess declaration of the farm owners. So I think this is one irritant in the way of bringing the agriculture sector in the tax net. Though, as you also mentioned, that all the provinces have amended their regimes, right, as per the need of the IMF, to bring to at least make a harmonized taxation framework and bringing a harmonized tax rate on agricultural income. But this is one particular issue which has always been there, and there were certain steps already taken in the past. These are not certain things that they have not been taken. Like in the initial General Musharraf or Shaukat Aziz period, there were certain...
Dr. NEELUM, overall performance, what do you think about as the export growth recorded in the first half of the financial year 25 was 7.1% as compared to the IMF projection for the year of only 2.1%. That was very low. Whereas import growth has been restricted to 9.3% compared to the projected growth rate of 11.3%, which was augmented by unprecedented 32% or $20.8 billion increase in remittances from the overseas Pakistanis. So if this trend goes on, can we achieve what the government is actually aiming, the $100 billion of the export target in next 5 years at least, that actually need export diversification, the value addition, low cost of doing business, industrial growth, especially the large scale industry and agriculture, because their performance is crucial to have export-led GDP growth in Pakistan?
I think you are right in this, that how the targets that the government has set by achieving $100 billion of exports in the next 5 years, I would say that these are not unachievable, though these are ambitious, but there are certain structural irritants, as I mentioned earlier also, which are needed to be addressed in order to achieve the targets. With that, we need to look at the structure or the quality of our exports, how diversified our exports is, as you also mentioned, and what are the value addition that we are bringing into the market so that our exports can be demanded internationally, and what we are offering to the international market. And as you also mentioned, that the how the government is able to provide an environment, an ecosystem of a low cost doing business for the farms. So these are certain things which may be very challenging for the government to bring an overall ecosystem change in the structure in order to achieve the targets. But yes, I believe year to year, year on year, the exports have to an extent improved. But the real question is how it can be sustainable in the long run. So that if you talk about 5 years...
Your point well taken, Dr. Neelam. Dr. Manzoor Sahab, whether suspension of the independent power producers agreements that according to the government helps to save at least 238 billion rupees, and renegotiation of with the 16 IPPs agreements potentially saved 418 billion rupees, then check on the power theft that reduced the distribution losses, appointment of the DISCO's board members, that also streamlined overall supply methodology and all that. Then the circular debt that was Dr. Hidayat was actually mentioning, that was bit reduced to 2.3 trillion. While government says that it will reduce electricity tariff for the industrial and domestic consumer. This is again a wish, but that is the wish from the government. Do you think that it will minimize the cost of doing business if done in a practical way?
Well, I should say it's a positive step forward. I mean, it was not easy because we had sovereign guarantees, and you know, we could have ended up with international tribunals. But fortunately, you know, both sides were able to come to some agreement, and they were able to do, you know, you said about 16 IPPs. They were renegotiated, about 5 which
and we are hearing up 18 more that there would be some sort of a renegotiation on the agreements and all that.
Yes, this is a step forward, but let me say that, you know, this election through these IPPs is not a big percentage of overall supply of. So it's going to make some difference, but not really as much. So much better, I should say, performance can come if they are able to privatize these DISCOs, because that's a lot of losses come from mismanagement and theft, etc. And if they've already improved the boards, they've brought professionals on the boards and their chief executives, etc. But okay, you know, but if they were able to privatize, then I think we have seen from the banks, etc., that once they're privatized, given to private people, they're able to bring much better performance than the government. Because as you're saying about the circular debt, although a little bit reduced, but still it's very high.
Actually, government is very sincere in that, but they want to actually maintain it lower than the 24 trillion because that is the benchmark. But we have to go minimize it because even 23 trillion is very high really. Dr. Hidayat, what about the Pakistan's skilled and highly educated workforce? That is the need of our internally, like freelancers and abroad to earn more foreign exchange and remittances. As after long time, the remittances surged 32% and more than that, and reaching overall benchmark of 20.8 billion US dollars. That is, we don't have to forget that that is up by 9.2 billion in 2023. While overseas Pakistan is actually investing through the Roshan Digital account as well, 1.53 billion US dollars they have already invested. So how much it is important for the overseas Pakistanis to show trust in Pakistan's economy, invest in their country, because first of all, if they come, that brings the confidence, the local investors as well as the overseas Pakistanis. So how do you see it is important? And what about the skilled workers? That is very important, the backbone of Pakistan's economy, if we focus on that wholeheartedly.
Actually, previously in your programs, I have mentioned that the thing which we are selling to the rest of the world is our population bulge. And that is the edge. And unfortunately, we are not focusing on the skill development of that edge which we have as compared to our neighboring countries. This is one side of the story. The other side of the story is that if you look at last 3 years, there has been huge brain drain. So on one side, we are not developing the skill of our manpower or human capital accumulation. On the other side, whatever skill we are having, we are losing it. It is increasing remittances, no doubt. It is increasing deposit in the RDA accounts. But remember, on RDA accounts, we are paying interest rate in US dollars. So again, it is increasing our debt burden. So to come out of this situation, first of all, we have to create the favorable business environment. And the first and the far most important condition for favorable business environment is, first is political stability. The second is how your legal system is working. And both of those need lots of attention.
Do you think that we have to float some sort of bonds for overseas Pakistanis rather than just floating into the open markets for them to invest in Pakistan?
Yes, I think
so. That would pave some way of
yes,
foreign
but the interest rate should be in local currency. If you are floating that because those are our diaspora, those have links over here, they have identity or origin from here. So if the interest is in the local currency, I think that
it's always a lucrative thing that the citizens of that country must have to be the owner of that.
But if it is in the US dollar or other foreign exchange, again it will increase our debt.
Dr. Manzoor sir, what about inflation drop to single digit? Whether it gives more leverage to state bank to down the interest rate further below 12%, because this is the genuine demand from the business community, investors and all others, or state bank would have more cautious approach because some of the financial reports actually indicating that there would be a surge in inflation in coming months. So especially because of might be the fuel or the food inflation and whatever is going on globally right now, the situation is. So what about decrease in food inflation and relief to the common man as well? Because they are feeling the heat and they are affected a lot. And obviously, when you have more swallowed kind of debt volume, that also increases when the inflation increases. So where it stands right now?
Well, it's a big improvement where we were a year ago. You know, it was 22% our interest rate, and now it's 12%. But I think, personally, I think government is being too cautious. They can bring it down quite substantially. I give you the example of India. India, the inflation rate is maybe 4% or 5%, and the interest rate is about the same. There's only 1% difference. Now here, our inflation
it's a huge difference. Yes.
Our inflation has come down to now. This was 4%, 5%, and that is 12%.
But actually, the main problem is, you know better than me, that the other indicators are still fragile. That's why might be the government is having a cautious approach.
Yes, but we have had no growth, almost no growth for the last 15 years. So that means that there's a lot of that brings more poverty. If there's no growth in the economy, it means there's more unemployment. So it's only through growth that new investment comes in. There's more employment. So we are already fallen much behind the region.
And for that matter, the local lending must have to be there. It is
yes,
another story that the
that's
commercial banks are always having lucrative when it comes to the state and the government institutions. They always invest, they always open for that. But when it comes to the small and medium enterprises, the small businesses, individuals, they are reluctant to give those loans or all that.
Yes, and also, even borrowing at 12% is quite high. But if they bring it, the reasonable, okay, it's 4%.
So what's the cushion we have? Either we have to come to the
about
single
4 or
digit?
5% cushion. If we bring it 7-8%, there will be a lot more domestic investment, and that will also attract. So we have to move our economy a little bit. I mean, we are still extremely cautious. I think it's time we have to have some growth.
Okay, your point well taken. Dr. Hidayat, external and internal debt liabilities. As currently the economy is feeling pressure due to the repayments of debt and simultaneously the interest payments as well. While the foreign exchange reserves, though improved to $16 billion till January 31st, 2025, but slow to rise, that is slow to rise, relying heavily on remittances. Foreign direct investment and exports are also slow in picking up. The capital flight is there. Then pays, pensions, the state-owned enterprises and other pressures mounting at the government expenditures basically. Reason for the domestic debt rise. So what needs to be done immediately to fix this issue and to have debt sustainability?
Okay, actually this is a very difficult question. There is no short-term solution for the sustainable debt. It will take at least 10 to 15 years. And we need to have, first of all, for that we need to have very consistent policy mechanism. And replacing our expensive debts, which are not from the multilateral donors, which are from the bilateral, by the multilateral to begin with. The second thing is that to mobilize resources from within the country. So it will save us paying debt in foreign exchange and debt servicing in foreign exchange. The third thing is that we have the mechanism which can have an ecosystem where there is, like it has been very pertinently mentioned by Dr. Manzoor, that why we are keeping the interest rate at 12% when we have a margin of 4 or 5%. So if the interest rate is even 3% lower, our government, which is borrowing from the local banks, I think
that would be replicated with the investments.
Yes, and billions
rather than borrowing.
Billions of our debt will be reduced overnight.
The intelligent thing is that we have to attract the investment rather than go for borrowing.
The second thing is like when the commercial lender have a very secure debtor in the form of government, which we call in economics crowding out effect.
Because you have the sound guarantees available.
Yeah, why should I lend to the SMEs or even to the large scale?
Actually, that must have to be encouraged at the state level.
Yes.
Because
so the thing is that there was one act, FRDL, Fiscal Policy Responsibility and Debt Limitation Act, back in 2005. Unfortunately, we have not implemented that. according to that, the deficit should be within the range of 4 or 5% of our budget.
Rather than in car financing or anything else,
Yes.
the banks must have to step forward to support small businesses and industries and all that, because that actually give us the growth.
You will be surprised that SMEs are getting less than 1% of entire debt in Pakistan. Where in case of our neighbor countries, it is in the range of 20 to 25%. And those are actually pushing the economy upward. If you are having strong SMEs, they act as a supply chain for the larger industry.
Definitely.
And the SMEs are graduating into medium industry.
These are basically the catalyst of change.
So I think that first of all, across the board, there should be an agreement that we have to bring our debt down in next 10 to 15 years.
Your point well taken. Actually, we have run short of time, Dr. Raza. But Dr. Neelam, very quick, because we have run short of time. What about the external financing facilities, as Pakistan has to get guarantees of at least $5 billion right now, including $3.4 billion, the Chinese debt, that is the commercial loan, and then the US dollar of 1.2 billion oil imports, and for some remaining amount. Now Beijing has actually given some sort of a positive indications to reschedule the $3.4 billion of the loan beyond 2027, because that is the maturity period of IMF program. The government already secured 1.2 billion Saudi oil facility, thanks to the generosity of the Saudi Arabia, and then took at least $300 million of loan through the United Bank Limited to bridge the overall financing gap. So how do you see these steps for external financing guarantees? That is also a benchmark that is needed when it comes to the IMF program.
I think these are always the sources for maintaining our external financing needs, right? Historically, we either rely on our bilateral lenders, preferably China, or the multilateral lenders to stabilize our external needs. But while looking at the issue that why our external debt, whatever debt we take, how we use it. We have seen that the external debts have generally or have primarily been used to support government consumption. They have never been used to expand, particularly, I would say, public investments. And they have always been used for consumption purposes. So whatever debt we take, that debt we use for repaying our previous debts or maintaining the consumption needs of the government, rather than investing it in productive ways. So that has always been an issue historically, and it will remain an issue until and unless we change our attitudes and our basic needs of what and how these external needs can be.
That needs will to have to change our priorities. But Dr. Neelam, what about investments? Because foreign direct investment is actually dwindling to 170 million in 2024 compared to $252 million in 2023. It is 32% decline rather than to be having more investments in the country, because that is a real part that if we invite more investors in Pakistan, more investment in the country, having lucrative ecosystem to attract those investments, so then economy is going to be picked up, because industrial growth and your exports all based upon these investments.
Yes, I think you have answered the question in your introduction also, that in order to attract investments, you need to have a conducive environment. A working, conducive environment, a low cost of doing business environment, all the regulations which show certainty in future. These are certain things which are important for any investor to come and invest in your country. And above that, as Dr. Hidayat also mentioned, that the political stability of a country is very important in order to have the certainty for their profits. So I think these are
Right,
very important.
right.
And
Your point well taken, Dr. Neelam, your point well taken. Dr. Hidayat, very brief, please. How much vital is to have extremely vigilant, effective and the corruption-free governance to achieve the long-term sustainability in macroeconomic as well as in microeconomic levels as well? We have to strengthen the institutional capacities to have good governance, fighting corruption, support inclusive growth, provide a level playing field for the businesses and investments is always crucial. While an IMF technical team is also currently visiting Islamabad and meeting with the election commission officials, the judiciary as well, law, finance and all other, and even the Security Exchange Commission as well. How do you see this, how vital this aspect is?
You know that if we look at the problems of developing economies, and you will find that more than 80% problems are rooted due to lack of governance, or those are linked with bad governance. So I think whether it is corruption or whether it is use of even existing legal system for some individuals' benefit, or whether it is creating a kind of environment that the investor doesn't feel safe when he or she is investing into a country, all those are linked with governance. And if an IMF is able to improve at least 20% governance in this country, I can guarantee you the return will be 3 times more.
Absolutely right, no doubt. Dr. Manzoor sir,
Yes.
very brief. How do you see IMF technical mission undertaking the Pakistan's governance and corruption diagnostic assessments, GCDA, and examines the severity across 6 state functions like fiscal governance, then central bank governance and operations, financial sector oversight, the market regulations, rule of law, and anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism. These are the benchmarks, the 6 important areas. How do you see how much important it is to improve ourselves and particularly this technical mission?
You know, as just Dr. Hidayat has explained, that is extremely important and the return will be far more. You see, this is not just that they're coming this time, but this IMF has, you know, from 1997, I think, they came up with this, that they will be addressing economic governance issues as well. This was updated, I think, in 2018. And already it's not only Pakistan, they've completed some 20 reports. They are, you know, now working on another 10. So what they're going to, all these organizations that you mentioned, like Ministry of Law and, you know, FBR and all these, so they will examine these and make their recommendations and then submit them to the government of Pakistan. So it's a very important function, and I think government has welcomed this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manzoor, for your presence here in the studios. Thank you very much, Dr. Hidayat sir, for your presence. And thank you very much, Dr. Neelam, your presence online and very candid views. Viewers, Pakistan's economy, its prosperity and development, vital for every Pakistani citizen. We want Pakistan to be more prosperous, more developed, but it needs hard work. What the government is right now doing, every Pakistani has to do the hard work, because that needs whole of the nation approach. When it comes to the some political statements were coming that Pakistan is going towards default, but right now Pakistan is out of that. 93% out of that. There is no chance to have that. We are in safe zone right now, but we have to do, it's still fragile, we have to do a lot. Informal economy must have to be channelized. Whether it's currency, whether it's any sort of a thing, we have to channelize it and we have to bring it to the formal thing. Achieving revenue target, that is very important. 13 trillion rupees is a huge target. At least that must have to be rational, but we have to achieve it, because still we have a shortfall, but we are very optimistic about that. Then agriculture income tax, the collection and reliability is still a question, but we have to implement it at any cost, because that was the area which was neglected too long. Structural reforms are must when it comes to you attaining the objective of $100 billion in our exports, because that needs export diversity, that needs value addition, that needs low cost of doing business, that actually needs that we have to focus on industrial growth. If industrial growth is not there and we are focusing just on exports, that is in isolation. Then of course the small businesses, the small and medium enterprises, we have to support it wholeheartedly. Prime Minister is very eager to support SMEs, but the banks has to open their doors regarding the loans and all others, because when they get the loans, they are going to prosper, and only the industrial growth led Pakistan towards real prosperity. Lucrative ecosystem is required when it comes to investments, because investor need protection, investor need facilitation, the sort of a one window operation, and not lots of hiccups and hurdles, and smooth pathway. So that brings a lot, and we have to just bring down this policy rate from 12% to at least 8%, because that will gain the investors' confidence, and ultimately foreign direct investment will be picked up. Cheap energy is required, because right now the energy resources are very high, the cost is very high, so it is not bearable. The skilled and better human resource, highly educated, academically sound and well-skilled human resource is a must for growth. Then of course, when it comes to the anti-corruption, it is very important. Best, not the good governance, but the best governance is required right now. Politically, administratively, legally, and of course financially. Then Pakistan will at least pick up its pace, and then there is no power on earth that can stop Pakistan being a prosperous and a developed country, which is the wish and the will of every Pakistani. We want Pakistan to be at the top of economic development. This is what today's Foresight is. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz Nasir.